Good afternoon, everyone. Ever heard of a polar spring? Well, you're about to live through one. 45 volcanoes send ash into the atmosphere. Effects should be reduced growing season this year. Northern Hemisphere, Sinabung volcano, 40,000 feet. Etna, at least 30,000 feet. How many times now? More active volcanoes showing signs rumbling to life. Speaking of that, eruption after 800 years in Iceland. Highest number of major earthquakes ever recorded in the first 65 days of a year. This year, population of the monarchs collapses 26%. Arctic walruses washing up in both Wales and Ireland. Third year in a row, this red line jumps well above the established averages. And when you get quotes like rare March dusting for snows in Spain, maybe you want to ask a question or two, but you shouldn't. You're not allowed to these days. Massive dust storms engulfing West Texas. Is that Dust Bowl back again? A new report reveals TikTok tracks you even if you've never made an account. To put this to the test, a Vice reporter downloaded and used the app but never created an account. He then submitted a GDPR request. What TikTok sent him was shocking. Everything from his IP address, what he searched online, what videos he watched, when he watched them, which were then shared with third parties like Facebook. Staying anonymous online so corporations can't track you is more important than ever. And the first step to doing so is using a VPN. You can head over to virtualshield.com, and in the download tab, I'm going to choose Firefox. And click Install Now to add the Virtual Shield add-on. It's just that easy. And get started with your free 30-day trial. Install it, click Connect. You'll see the shield turn from red to green. And you'll see how from my initial service provider, I was able to even change my IP. Virtual Shield Network protected. Go to virtualshield.com/adapt2030 or click the link in the description box below to get Virtual Shield today for 50% off and free for 30 days. And now, on with the video. And as we get ready to experience a polar spring, something unseen in a century, maybe 2 centuries, maybe 4 centuries. Perhaps that explains the Great Reset, but with all the volcanoes erupting across the planet, Arctic domes forming over grow zones, images of lava becoming more commonplace. Some eruptions of note that are going through this video are just from the first several weeks of the month here. Sinabung, 40,000 foot eruption. Etna, 33,000 foot eruption. But Etna's been going off like a smokestack. Another one up to 40,000 feet almost prior to that. And Pinatubo, this is a scary one because that was the eruption in 1991 that cooled the planet. And guess what? It's raising its level again, awakening. Etna, another 35,000 foot eruption. Singe, 40,000 foot out of Ecuador. And this is all going to continue to add up to much more ash in the atmosphere. Second eruption from Singe. And again, Etna. 30,000 foot. Listen, Etna, puff, puff, give. I'd done a video last week where the National Weather Service, using Hawaii satellite, had seen ash over the Great Lakes in the United States from some of these prior eruptions. So you know in earnest that this ash is now circling our planet. And lo and behold, they call for a polar spring. Gee, I wonder why. Pacaya adding into the mix as well. Airports closed, ashfall. But the startling rumbling to life of not only Pinatubo, but the Cleveland volcano in Alaska and the once after 800 years in Iceland, that whole peninsula actually after 800 years woke up. So you have to ask yourself, what kind of cycle are we on? 800 years, hadn't seen any eruption, and now massive 35,000 earthquakes under these same areas. Over to the big wobble. They're also showing the highest number of major earthquakes ever recorded in the first 65 days of a year. Mag 6 or higher, and that's even after the downgrade with the USGS. Seems like it's in play, the effects magnetically from our sun. It steps down, the Earth's going to adjust itself. Population of monarch butterflies arriving at Mexico's forest habitats on their migration yearly, falling 26% from a year earlier. Like a quarter of the butterflies are gone. Where'd they go? Did they shift? That's a possibility where the magnetic field lines are changing in the Earth's surface. If they're going to be migrating using magnetic field lines, I bet they turned up somewhere else. So what we really should be looking for is not the decline in the butterflies themselves, but where do those butterflies migrate to instead of the normal traditional areas. Now jumping over to Wales and Ireland, Arctic walrus are spotted in this area suddenly. Now you could say climate change, scapegoat, whatever it would be. But, just like everybody else predicting these massive changes in ocean circulation currents, the grand solar minimum onsetting, animals in the Arctic are going to progress further south, especially in that area from Iceland over to the northern part of the British Isles, Scandinavian countries. You're going to see a lot more Arctic life move that way as the ocean cools, as the overturning oscillation decreases in strength. And I really took notice on how different news outlets had reported the sightings of these rare creatures. More traditional journalism, they would say like this: an Arctic walrus was seen, was sighted in a certain place. They don't say it's unusual, which is unusual that they wouldn't say it's unusual because it's really rare, so you thought they would put unusual in the headline, but even in the first paragraph would have been nice, but nope. Can't talk about that. But then RTE News just goes off the rails here with Arctic walrus washed ashore. It's not a shipwreck survivor, please. What do you mean washed ashore? Those things made their way there consciously. That direction, new migration pattern, and getting cooler down there, we're going to head south. Better fishing, whatever. They didn't wash ashore. But you see the narrative to explain the anomalies that are happening. You get from the very light versions, which I actually applaud some news services for coming out and say that species was sighted here, there, or wherever it would have been on the shores. But to come out and just fully deflect like this, washed ashore. And even the rescue services say the animal's in good health. Obviously, if it's in good health, it didn't wash ashore. It chose to get there. You see how just even in the same one paragraph from the same news agency, they contradicted themselves in 3 sentences. Deflection. And for the 3rd year in a row, Finnish Meteorological Institute putting out their Northern Hemisphere snow totals well above even the 2 standard deviations. Nobody wants to touch this. They didn't want to talk about it last year or the prior year, which was much more intense above the norms than this year. But 3 years in a row, you think somebody might start the conversation? Because looking down into Spain, even Spanish media reporting on rare March dusting, and everywhere else is talking about a polar spring due to volcanic activity and aerosols in the air, and here spring snows in usually warm by now locations in Spain. Alicante region, in Mallorca also. This is covering an enormous amount of Spain. In Burgos, and then looking out at the GFS model from now until, April 2nd? How much snow is that falling? Look at even northern Morocco, all the way down into Spain. And where the walruses were sighted, what's that? Northern Ireland, a dusting, Scotland, Wales. And then we jump over to the U.S. where the National Weather Service described a historic and crippling snowstorm just a week ago. Denver now marking the 4th most intense snowstorm. And that's for all months. Still, it's in the record books, and there were all these record snowfalls across Wyoming. And historic for National Weather Service to call something like this is historic in itself, because they're such the deflectors as well as all the other major news organizations that snow is going to be a thing of the past. And jumping back over to the watchers on the Earth Changes section, the massive dust storm encompassing West Texas causing near zero visibility. And you would think with such an atmospheric anomaly that sent that ice storm of historic proportions, record low cold temperatures that absolutely obliterated that state's electrical grid, was something so far out of the norm that it was not even expected on the outside of the outside of the outside periphery behind the barn over there, that now they're into a massive dust storm that is so far outside the normal parameters of what a dust storm size would be that it's literally off the charts, way back into Dust Bowl era time, and nobody's putting these two events together. It's like, this is an independent thing, and now, okay, don't think about that thing that just happened 2 weeks ago. This is a different thing. It's just a thing by itself with this atmospheric spin, bringing up hundreds of millions of tons of dust into the air and blowing it through where there's zero visibility, closing airports, choking people on the streets. But you know what? That blizzard and ice storm just a couple weeks ago, these are unrelated. Totally unrelated. Don't think about it. Different month. Well, it kind of straggled into the same month, but it's sort of like different week, okay? That's what we're getting from the media. Polar spring inbound, huge changes for the way we're going to grow food this year. Skyrocketing prices by the end of the year. Seriously. You're going to need to get yourselves ready. I'm teamed up with My Patriot Supply, long-term food storage. If you want to get the 2-week or the 4-week emergency food supply so you have food in your homes, that's great. They even have 6-week and 1-year packages. But if you want to go out to the store and you want to buy things in bulk and you're like, wow, I got all these big bags of things that I need to put into smaller bags, they even offer the Mylar bags and the oxygen packs. Everything you need to get yourself ready for storing food for a long period of time. Take a look at My Patriot Supply, and they have water filtration. Polar spring's in play. Food prices rising. A lot of changes happening around us. I do wish you the best in your preparations. And it's a great way to support the Adapt 2030 channel so I can bring you more research just like this. I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next video.